Early deed descriptions are actually quite interesting, but at the same time can be very confusing. The metes and bounds method of describing property was used in the original 13 United States colonies, as well as several other early states. This video will talk about some of the things we learn in a deed record, along with a description. The use of north and south and east and west will be discussed. It was very common to mention things like a creek, a river, posts, trees, fence lines, neighbors, rocks, boulders, and other items to describe the land that was being transferred to another person. In this land deed for Stephen Kephart, it names all of the neighbors. On the west is George Kephart. On the north is George D. Morgan. On the east is Abraham Goss. On the south is Abraham Goss. George Kephart is Stephen's brother. He is also related to Abraham Goss. Looking further down on this deed, we learned a few more things. The property was Stephen's father's, Henry Kephart. It states that this was the first improvement in Clearfield County, Pennsylvania. This was probably the first land that Henry owned in Clearfield, Pennsylvania. This is where Henry was living at the time of his death. It also tells us that he died intestate, which means he didn't have a will when he died. To start learning about the actual description, let's talk about the north and south directions. I think of it like a circle. In the middle of the circle is the beginning point of each direction given. The direction will give a degree from 0 to 90. If it says north 45 degrees, then we have a line going that direction. The question is, which way do we go north 45 degrees? The next part of the legal description will say east or west, and that is what tells you which way to go at the 45-degree angle. The same is true if it says south 45 degrees. If it says south 45 degrees east, this is the direction you will go. If it says south 45 degrees west, this is the direction you will go. After the east or west direction, it will give you a distance. Rods, poles, and perches all have the same meaning, and they are equal to 16.5 feet or 5.5 yards. If it says 5 rods, it would go 27.5 yards. If it says 10 poles, it will go 55 yards. If it says 15 perches, it will be 82.5 yards. Let's look at a few examples. The measurements are not a correct perspective, but hopefully it will give you an idea of what the wording means. Let's look at the description of this property. Beginning at a post corner of Michael Gilson's land, thence 52 degrees east, 126 perches. This means the line goes north at a 52-degree angle, going in an east direction for a distance of 126 perches, to a post on James Gilgan's land. Thence by the said land 38 degrees east, 168 perches, to a post. Thence 52 degrees west, 126 perches, to a post, by tract warranted to Daniel Levy. North 38 degrees west, 168 perches, to the beginning, containing 124 acres and 59 perches. This description tells us who 3 of his neighbors were. This is a deed from 1812 in Pennsylvania, Virginia. Let's break it down. Beginning at Jesse Kesey's New Corner Pine. Thence, along his line south 12 degrees, east 80 poles to Pointer. South 6 degrees west, 138 poles to a pine. South 42 degrees, east 200 poles to a pine. south 76 degrees east, 13 poles to John Wade's corner white oak. Thence along Ward's line, north 17 degrees east, 128 poles to a pine. Thence along the same north 87 degrees west, 38 poles to a pine. North 10 degrees west, 176 poles crossing a branch to a pine. North 18 degrees poles to said ash sapling. Thence a dividing line, south 83.5 west, 120 poles to the beginning. This is an attempt to show you the previous land description. It is a bit complicated, and this is definitely not to proportion, but trying to draw out the description can give you an idea of what the property lines were, or at least be more aware of the neighbors and the landmarks. Beginning at Jesse Kesey's new corner pine. Thence along this line, south 12 degrees, east 180 poles to a pointer. South 6 degrees, west 138 poles to a pine. South 42 degrees, east 200 poles to a pine. South 76 degrees east, 13 poles to John Wade's corner white oak. Thence along Ward's line, north 17 degrees east, 128 poles to a pine in Charles Calloway's line. Thence along the same north 87 degrees west, 38 poles to a pine. North 10 degrees west, 176 poles crossing a branch to a pine. I think the branch is like a creek branch. North 18 degrees, poles to said ash sapling. Thence a new dividing line, south 3.5 or 83.5 west, 120 poles to the beginning. You never know what you will find as markers in these land descriptions. Here are a few snippets of some of the description items. Corner on the road. To Wolf Hill Creek. To an oak stump. To the said Hodges cornerstone. I imagine the rivers and creeks are still there, but many items like an oak stump and cornerstone would likely not still be there. Even if they were there, they would be hard to identify. Enjoy looking at many of these land descriptions and see what you can find. Happy hunting!